Welcome to Alfalfa, D-Gents, and what would the
D-Genettes?
female
I was
version
thinking of this
D-Gen?
actually the other day.
Yes.
Is D-Genette the word? I don't know.
Let's do that.
I think it's appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah.
D-Gens.
D-Gent, welcome D-Gents and D-Gentettes to Alfalfa. We should probably try and be a little degenerate today to fulfill that promise. Yeah. So we're going to bring the ruckus. Holy shit, NFT land and holy shit, Wonderland. We have some things to unpack. First of all, subscribe. We love subscribers. We don't really like non-subscribers. They're not our favorite. So subscribe. Now that we got that out of the way, we're going to dig right into the Alfalfa this week because there's been a fuck ton of it. And I think we're all spending a little bit of time in different places. I know I've particularly been like super deep in NFTs lately, but I guess anybody who's just following the trend and the flow and the tide right now is. But I know, Steven, you have been uncovering some very interesting things, and there's some important, actually, like stuff to discuss with the Wonderland news. But we'll get to that. I think the part that I wanted to mention first is just like the absurd level of what the Bored Ape Yacht Club and Mutant Ape Yacht Club have achieved over the last week since we last talked.
Insane growth.
The floor, 110 ETH.
Your bags, brother.
It doesn't even make
Pump
sense
your bags.
anymore.
Bieber bought a floor ape for 500 ETH.
Yeah, so on paper he's down 400 ETH already. So, he probably doesn't care.
Hey, when you see that NFT you want, when you know, you know.
Yeah, I was most excited about Kevin Hart actually getting
involved. Oh, what did he buy? I didn't see that.
That guy's a legend. He bought a Bored Ape.
Okay.
You weren't
was he
excited
given
about
a Bored Ape,
if I'm not mistaken.
He bought it?
That's a good point. Like, real talk. Is anybody actually buying these? Does anybody here seriously
I don't know why
think
you guys
that
think
these,
that.
The Bored Apes are being organically bought? I'm curious.
I really do. I don't know why. Maybe that's naive, but I think that multi-millionaire celebrities don't have a problem. Oh, by the way, another one was Neymar. That really pumped it as well. Multi-millionaire celebrities and athletes don't have a problem spending $1 million, $500,000 on these things. I think they can't wait to spend it. They want to be in the club,
right? But
like this is their new.
I think
there's
this is
so
all,
many other.
I don't think they care about the money, right? But I think it feels like engineered to me. Like I just find it hard to believe like all these celebrities are just sitting around like FOMOing into apes organically. You know,
they probably all have CAA as like their agent. You know, CAA is like a big LA agency, or they like share the same agents. So I don't know, maybe it's being pumped around their agents, but
yeah, it's
but
probably some like deal at the top,
deal
like
making.
You said, yeah.
But listen, not fudding. I mean, there's definitely good retail action behind it, and they have some new developments they're coming out with, which are cool. I think they're launching, and was it ApeCoin? Like they're going to distribute some kind of ApeCoin to anyone who owns an NFT.
Their game was very successful.
Yeah, who knows what the functionality will be, but
yeah. I mean, I don't. It's not like they're trying to rug anyone. I think at the end of the day, even if a few of these NFTs have been given out, I don't think it's like done with malintent, and maybe it's just done to like help that person get in. Which I know there's like multiple people that are like facilitating the execution of the purchase for a lot of these celebrities. I was also very excited about Chappelle getting involved. But how cringe did you guys see the clip of Paris Hilton and Jimmy Fallon comparing their Bored Apes?
I passed.
Did anyone see that?
I didn't see it.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. I mean, I can't even reenact it, but you know, Jimmy does his old thing where he pulls the picture out from under the desk and he's like, here's mine. And she's like, oh, I have one too. And they like pull them out and the audience is just like,
so
you know how normally the audience like claps?
Nobody knows what it
for
is.
Things
or what?
and they're like, yay.
So
and there was
organic.
like a weird, cringy, slow clap. Like, we don't like cartoon
Here's
JPEGs,
these rich people
but I
showing
guess
off
we'll
their
clap.
like 6-figure trinkets in front of us. Great. This is pure comedy. Yeah, thank you.
Are we early?
It was bad.
Are we early?
Almost sold. I almost sold.
Oh my god.
So, but I have to say, just to like, you know, just to get the Alfalfa train going. I mean, it was approximately few months ago, I bought a mutant ape for like not even 6 ETH.
Where are you at
think.
now?
And like 30.
Oh, that a baby?
So,
That a baby?
Yeah.
Let's go.
So I'd say that's
This is one of the
that's a
clearest
pretty
top
good-
signals in our history is when Armand is way up.
So Armand, do you have a price
you.
target? Are you going like a stock analyst style where you have a price target, or are you gonna read the tea leaves of the narratives and kind of like pull a trigger at one point?
Both. I set an exit price target of 50 ETH.
Okay.
But it's approaching too fast.
bullish, baby.
So I'm also following the narrative and this environment overall. I mean, there are a lot of plays here. Like I was talking to our friend Chris Rodino about this, who has been in and out of mutant apes, and what he does so well. You know, he was just mentioning this, kind of like drop his methodology here is like, and you guys know him well. It's like he'll take a 3x, 4x gain on an NFT and get out and not stay greedy. And he just continues to do that. He picks the projects correctly most of the time, a lot of the time. And as soon as he gets to that 300% or 400% return, he gets out, he moves on, and he redistributes his capital toward new projects that he thinks can accomplish the same. And so many of the projects that he's bought into and sold have gone to like 50x. And he's okay with that. I mean, it hurts at the end of the day, like he got out of his mutant, he mentioned. And it hurts, but he was like, you know, what you could do is sell your mutant ape at like 30 or 40 ETH, buy a bunch of cool pets tomorrow, and do the whole thing all over again, and then buy back into a mutant ape with your profits. There's a lot of
we
ways
should
to
refer
play.
to him as Carne Asada Chris. That's his. I think that's his username. And
Yes.
Carne Asada Chris rolled into about 20 alien friends. So that's some outsider trading from a labeled NFT whale. He thinks that.
Does he have the label? Is he officially
does,
a
in
Nansen
Nansen.
AI NFT whale?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or it's not whale. I think it's like Epic NFT Trader, I think is what it's labeled at. So he has the label in some Nansen AI tool, which is a tool to analyze NFT projects, and they label addresses to kind of like identify who's moving what and see who the players are. Anyway, he's labeled in there. But I think they're going to be issuing some kind of ERC20 token with the Alien Friends project at the end of this month. No one knows what that may involve, but it seems like these most recent projects have been parlaying it into some kind of like a wolf game version where there's like a staking involved and you earn tokens, and those tokens have some kind of utility, and then someone creates a secondary market for it, and you can train it on something like Uniswap.
Let's take a half step back,
Cool.
Nick, because that's pretty important what you're discussing. It's like, all right, so we have these NFTs. These are a type of token called ERC 721, correct? And that's not the only type of NFT,
Right.
but that's the most popular one. Curio cards are the kind of old school version.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not get into that. So you have these NFTs that are a type of token on the Ethereum blockchain. So you also have the NFT projects issuing their own tokens. Can you kind of just like,
Yeah.
I think for most people that's very difficult to like conceptualize.
Yeah, so NFTs are good as their own token. They're the non-fungible token, and so projects can issue a fungible token, something that can be used to purchase things. It can be used almost as a reward. Hey, for holding this NFT, we're going to airdrop you some tokens, which you can do with something inside the ecosystem. It may be to buy merch. It may be to mint an NFT, and maybe that NFT, the second project in this like series of projects, you might only be able to use that token. And so it's a way to reward community members. And you'll see all of them say, hey, this token may be worthless, it's not worth real money, but it's to be used inside this ecosystem. And then what naturally pops up are some kind of a trading liquidity pool on these decentralized exchanges like Uniswap. So most of everyone's familiar with Coinbase. That's a centralized exchange where Coinbase decides what trades on there. And on Uniswap, anyone can put up a token to be traded. They just have to supply both sides of the trade. So say ETH and whatever this Alien Friends token is going to be. So that's essentially what it's used for. And in some cases, some of these can yield tokens that are worth quite a bit of money. the market determines they're worth quite a bit. So I think there was a Creeps project, and we had a friend who owned 3 of them and was making like $4,000 to $5,000 a day in this ERC20 token. And it's kind of, it makes you laugh, but he was taking that token every day and just selling it off for ETH. And so, I think passive income gets thrown around a lot, which is certainly not passive income or anything. It's kind of hilarious when people say that. Like, these things are short-lived. So you got to decide, is this ecosystem got legs? Should I sell it for ETH? And the best examples in this group, when we were playing with Wolf Game, you got to stake one of your NFTs and earn an ERC20 token called Wool. And we had this great realization.
We're finally explaining what we've been talking about. So that's what Wool is.
And it was kicking off this ecosystem. Okay, we're going to circulate this token. The way we're going to circulate it is the people who bought our original NFT to reward the community members. They have to stake it. And we had this amazing realization. You could actually take this magic internet money called Wool and trade it for ETH, which we all consider to be real hard money. And that was I think an inception point in all of our brains that, wow, if an ecosystem get kicked off, even if it's for a short-term basis, a few days, pretty magical that you could turn magic internet money into real money. So anyway, I think that's the reason why Carne Asada Chris was interested in the Aliens Friends project, because they'll be dropping one, they said, at the end of this month, at the end of February. So who knows? Could be worthless, could not be. They might come up with some new stuff, but I think it's trading at like 2.5 ETH. So it's not maybe in that tier 1, 10 ETH and above kind of status. But maybe could be one to enter the stratosphere at some point.
That's good, Alfalfa. I thought we were going to start talking about Wolf Game again, and I was going to jump off a bridge.
No. We don't need to do that. One of my lists is to buy more land in that project.
Yes, buy farmers. Wolf Game Alpha. Buy the farmers.
Farmers buy the fucking land. Buy the land.
Can we not talk about Wolf Game again?
Buy
it's like every episode of Wolf Game.
No. The people must.
I'm sorry. Do you not want to talk about a 100x project? Because I think people want.
Okay, I think we covered it. I think we've covered it. Like,
all right.
Talk about what you're buying in the lightning round if you want to. I wanted to give Armand. I wanted to give Armand a bit of a love bath, because I think the Alfalfa is not only delivering the thing to buy, like you said, Alien Friends. That's good, Alfalfa. I think another, like, the better form is like walking through your thought process of why. Okay, so good job. You talked about this token being launched. I wanted to give Armand a little credit, because he walked me through his I guess it was like a simple thought process of why Mutant Apes, and that was back when you bought it at 6 ETH. You said Mutant Apes and Bored Apes are still part of the same ecosystem, and the price disparity is just too wide. Like, if celebrities are buying this stuff, they don't really care if it's a Bored Ape or a mutant or whatever. They just want to be part of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. So Bored Ape or Mutant Apes are going to converge. The price is going to converge, and I think you've been right about that, and it probably will continue to go.
Most importantly, that took getting in the Discord, which is what I always tell people to do. And one of the sayings that I saw throw around, you'll notice patterns in Discords. You'll understand the sentiment of the community and where they stand on the project and what they think is valuable. And the main thing that they threw around was bake equals make. This was done by the bake owners. It was a way to create inclusivity and to expand the community to say, there's no superiority tier 1, tier 2 here. All we've done is expand. We've literally mutated our apes with this fucking cartoon serum to create this other thing, magic internet money, but in the form of a JPEG. And they're just the same, but we've expanded the pool of the supply, which is still fixed. And you have to dive in to find these things sometimes and understand the overall sentiment. And I think we're going to see the same exact thing. I do want to circle back to the token thing, but I think we're going to see the exact same thing with cool cats and cool pets. Cool cats equal cool pets, except like 10 times more interesting, because maybe I'm bringing this a little early, but like that whole thing that is launching is like, we've been talking about, well, what is the next NFT ecosystem and game that is going to evolve the Wolf Game model, and Cool Pets shows that they're doing that.
Cool Cats,
so that's pretty
is
exciting.
This artistic PFP of kind of these not anime style, but like, I don't know, just like cats, 10,000 of them. They came up to about
a cat
10.
profile pic project, yeah.
Yeah, cat profile pic project.
Yeah,
and like,
JPEGs.
I don't like them.
cat JPEGs, cartoon cats, and they're like 10 ETH, I think. And then they're gonna launch out this Cool Pets, which is like a derivative or a secondary one of it, and they're gonna have these like Tamagotchi like game features where you stake it and you earn some token, then you can use that token to like, Tamagotchi your thing and make it grow and earn even more tokens. Kind of simple Ponzi-nomics applied there, and we'll see how that develops. But I feel like those are good risk
rewards. Are you really
rewards.
familiar with these? Because like I just started looking into them, and I have some questions
We looked at
About
the
cool cats, you mean?
about the Cool Pets. I'm still too busy playing with my farms.
I just
You
read-
guys are all NFT
I think you should read through.
So Cool
Like
Pets are at
their
a
so-called-
2.6 floor against the Cool Cats at the 12 floor right now. And maybe to Armand's point, maybe these two things will converge.
Price disparity.
So here's my current understanding. There's like 20,000 of these things. They gave 10,000 to Cool Cat owners, right? And then there's like a 10,000 public mint. And then when you start, you get an egg, and then that egg hatches, and then it goes through like specific stages of development, right? It kind of like grows up. Is that about right?
Yeah, and there's like a marketplace.
Yeah, I saw
where you
that
can
there's a
buy
market.
things.
There's like you can kind of upgrade. You can feed it stuff, and it takes on some elements of like earth, wind, fire, or something.
Yeah.
It seems like interesting.
The point is, like, there are, so back to like Nick's explanation of the token aspect, the ERC20 aspect. What I think we're ultimately seeing, and people always ask me, they're like, dude, what is the point of buying a cartoon JPEG? Well, the point is there's many points, and each one of these projects is completely different. And I'd love somebody to like speak to this, because I don't know if I can speak to this well enough. But the community is one aspect, access, right? The other aspect is like this this false idea of passive income, which is definitely not something as a project owner you should ever say, by the way. Like, you will get in big trouble for claiming that you provide people passive income. But in a sense, it is like a short-lived, short-term way of earning this token, like wool or like milk or whatever it might be, that you can then do what Nick said, swap it from the coin that you receive that is like part of the tokenomics of the project back to Ethereum, which is real.
And that first
like,
moment you
what we
do it
consider
is
money.
fucking sweet. It's so nice.
It is.
Like money came out
It
of.
is. So there's
came
a
out of
lot of
nowhere.
utility. Yeah, there's a lot of utility. And this Cool Pets thing is going to be like, I think, an interesting example of that. And I think we could see some convergence. So I don't know if you guys want to unpack that one more.
We
If you
really
have
need
different.
Asia to get involved with these.
They already are.
And I have like high hopes because there are cats involved here. So that's my investment thesis.
I like it.
Can you single-handedly maybe like actually make that happen
Asians
and pull
plus
them in and
cats
send the
equals
signals?
Number go up.
Well, there's been this Azuki project, which is kind of one of the first
Oh, yeah.
anime style projects, and it launched, I think, on the 11th. Today is February 1st, so January 11th. It's been like, what, 20 days? And it's already at 12.6 ETH. So, you're talking about...
We totally
a
missed that one.
12x.
Talk about missing alfalfa.
And I think it was simply that, Asian people started buying it. Like people from Asia, Singapore, Korea, China started buying it up big because they finally found something that maybe resonated a little more. So to your point, there may be a new wall of money coming.
What will the Indians buy?
Oh, wasn't there this
Per today's
kid
news.
in Indonesia that like posted? It may not be Indonesia, but he posted like
Yeah, the
I don't know.
Ghazali every days or whatever thing where he ended up sounded like $1 million worth of them or something, right?
Yeah, this kid just posted up like, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000 selfies of himself, almost probably as a joke. And the project just memed its
yeah.
way to like paying this kid $1 million plus, and probably still trading, and he's getting royalties on it. So good for him.
I almost bought
Oh my
those
God.
actually.
Well, so-
very early on, and I didn't, and they ended up like 20xing or something stupid.
We
Now
should-
sometimes
we
you see
should
something
mention
on
this,
crypto Twitter, and you're like, "This is so stupid that I know it's going to go like super viral." It's just like the perfect meme. I kind of had that. You get that little like meme spidey sense in your brain after a while after you do this a bunch, but I ignored it, and then And Izuki's another one. Like I had Izuki on my radar actually very, very early. It was on my like little kind of, I have this kind of like follow list on Twitter where I kind of, I want to make sure I keep track of ideas, but I often find I don't go back to them. I put them in my kind of like research this bucket, but then I just get distracted and I don't buy them. And then 2 months later, I have immense amounts of regret,
Steven's meme.
Sad.
Steven's meme is to like you buy everything that he doesn't. Like I think if Armand's meme is he's the top signal, Steven's meme is that he's like that's the signal that you need to buy that. He won't. You should.
I don't know why you're trying to meme this.
Don't meme me.
I really am not with this. I
got one I want to.
Who's closest to the India news though? Like who really looked at that? Because I think that's important to talk about.
I haven't. What's the news? Is there?
I don't think I could do it justice. But basically, they made some significant updates from like going from constantly talking about banning it and having more and more regulation around it to having a friendlier relationship with it, getting clear on what they want to do tax-wise, which is to just straight up tax crypto and NFTs 30%. And there's a lot of like important details in the way that they're going to tax it that's like a little bit
More aggressive?
how do we say, yeah, not just aggressive, but like important as an Indian citizen, let's just say, to pay attention to the details. But it's mostly good news because they're, one of the biggest countries in the world and they're embracing it.
It looks like they're going to launch a digital rupee too.
Right.
I don't know if
big
there's like a
part of
play
this.
or an investment on that. I think it's just kind of like macro news and, a sign of further adoption. And I don't think anyone cares that like their crypto profits get taxed. I think it's just give us a sandbox to play in to innovate.
Right.
And
we need clarity.
Let us go. Yeah. And then penalize, and Eric, you brought this up before, like penalize the people who actually commit fraud. Like leave things open so we can innovate, a little clarity. But then, as far as like, rules and regulations, for now, just punish anyone who starts actually stealing things and committing fraud.
That's exactly what we want from our regulators. We want, like go after criminals. Don't go after the builders and like the participants. Go after the people that are actually defrauding people. Like go for that. Like that's
right.
That's simple.
I did
go ahead.
I did have a
go on
I had
your alpha.
Well, I just wanted to. I'm looking at looks again, and I want to ask you guys something because I'm looking at the
I don't wanna look at
rewards,
it.
and they are juicy. So, just quick update: Looks is an OpenSea competitor. We've talked about it before on the podcast, I think a few episodes ago. But anyway, the fees that OpenSea charges and OpenSea collects and goes to the OpenSea corporate treasury in Looks Rare. Those fees go to the token holders. So the way they reward those back to the token holders is if you stake your Looks, you get actual ETH as a reward. So you stake it, you collect ETH. Right now, the ETH APR, the reward rate is 430%. So you're earning 4.3x annually on your Looks in ETH. And then you earn an additional Looks in
And
the
you
Looks
earn
token,
Looks.
another 220%. So we talked about on the previous podcast that a lot of this trading volume is from wash trades. People trying to game the system and kind of arbitrage their way to additional Looks rewards. And it seems,
a lot of it
positive
like
EV.
Almost literally
90% of it.
right?
Yeah, 90%
it's
of
really
it.
high.
So Eric and I were just chatting before this, and he made the point that these rewards cut in half in 30 days. So it looks like Looks
Is it 30
started
days?
on.
Was it
Yeah.
1 month or 2 months? It was a 2-month thing.
There's a 30-month decrease.
30 day from the launch.
30 days
From the launch,
right?
though, so that's
Yeah.
soon.
So we're
'Cause
approaching that.
I had a mental note to kind of be careful around that mark because I wanted to kind of see what would happen there. because I mean the economics of it seem to dictate that the volume of the exchange will go down by 50% when this happens, right?
Right.
Because most of the volume is driven by rewards. If you have the rewards, you can only profitably wash trade with like half the amount of volume. Ergo, the volume should go down by half. But like, is the market already pricing that in, or is the token going to tank? Like, I took a lot of profits in like the high 4s, low 5s. I think when we went there. If you like, was it a week or two ago? I don't know, because I got a little nervous about the whole Ponzi-nomics of it. But like, this is like a project I'm looking at like really carefully, because I think it's so interesting, right? And like, I want to be involved in stuff that's like not DeFi, because I do think like a giant narrative of this year is not going to be farming and decentralized finance. It's going to be, you know, metaverse and NFTs. That's where all the users are going. So this is an interesting play. But I look at it and like, what's the fully diluted valuation now? What is it, like 5 or 6 billion or something like that?
5.5 billion.
Five and a half
billion. Yeah. So like, I'm just asking myself, like, is this like, what is OpenSea worth? Do we think like 30 billion? Like, is
30.
This project worthy of 20% of the valuation of OpenSea right now?
Probably not. But I mean, think about, getting 4 times your looks value in ETH. I don't know any other project where you stake a native token and earn your rewards in ETH, which is unique, because it's actually coming from trading fees. Now, it's one thing to say those are wash trades, but if we have a decrease in 30 days, so that comes up in 9 days on February 10th, and then the next decrease is, I think, in 90 days from product launch. So you have this 60-day window. So if we think that after this 30-day rewards decrease, we might see like a price adjustment. That'd be a good time to like keep an eye on it, maybe buy, or maybe keep DCAing in and stake. And I mean, even if the token value drops 50%, you know, even like 60%, if I'm still earning a good amount in ETH rewards, and we'll see what that drops to after this rewards adjustment. But I think it's unique in that it earns you ETH. So I just want to keep an eye on it leading up to this February 10th.
Nobody's using the damn platform though.
So I'm
like kind of over
a Dune analytics board. I shared 2 of them in the chat. If somebody wants to share the screen, the first one is the wash sales volume. So they just measure the volume that has no fees associated with it. To do the wash sales, that was like, you know, that was mostly like me bits or no royalty, you know, associated with the project, and that accounts for majority of the trades, like you guys said. And then the second Dune analytics board I shared was comparing sales volume against OpenSea, and you can see that the volume is catching up even if you remove just wash sales. So like, it is gaining market share over time. I think that is sort of like the investment thesis that we're going into right now.
So Eric, I have your second Dune board up on the screen here, sharing.
Okay, that's against the OpenSea volume, right?
Just like a PSA, I think that's important with LooksRare is it's very much still Wild West, and in the last couple days on Discord, I've seen at least 3 people mention that they like bought a fake NFT without realizing it, and that they're experienced NFT, you know, degens, and it happened to them. So just, I have no idea the details. I just think it's an important PSA. They don't have the same sort of security measures that OpenSea does, and I guess, I don't know, it had something to do with verifying projects.
Getting rid of people's, you know, like there was a hack in OpenSea where people were losing their non-canceled trades. So like Bored Apes were going for, you know, a fraction of 1 ETH.
Right.
Wait, so Eric, do I have this right that LooksRare is doing a much higher dollar volume, but the transactions are like a fraction of what OpenSea is doing? Does that mean that's a signal of wash trades because they're doing extremely high transactions in between their own wallets to capitalize on the trading fees that LooksRare provides? Is that?
Are you kind of? I was looking at the one. Yeah. So the dollar volume is way higher, but then the users are way lower. So it's just a bunch of trades by a couple guys.
Yeah, you'll see people just like sell a floor Meebit for like 900 ETH, so that's why the volume is really high, but the straight up number.
So in 8 days, they're going to have the rewards, and at that halving, like, there's nothing to say that even wash trading will still remain profitable. So you might see transaction volume disappear, not just half.
Right. So let's follow that through.
So guys, I think we need.
Right?
Excuse me. I think we need to talk about exactly how you guys are playing this. How are you playing it, and how will you play it?
So I think we
need to get very specific
so
here.
The expectation is that this thing might dump after this reward halving, right? When people see their yields are a lot lower, it's going to dump. And so I want to keep an eye on it, and depending on how much it dumps, if it does, and we kind of keep an eye on Twitter to see like if people are finding that wash trades are profitable, and then DCA in after that dump. Who knows what's going to actually happen? I just think it's a mark on the calendar to take a look at it and to see what the ETH rewards settle in at, after the first couple days, and then maybe make a purchase or maybe abstain. So that's how I'm gonna look at it. But it just seems very interesting.
It sounds like a lot of us have taken profits when this thing has touched highs. Like, I know Armand said he was fully out in the fives, like somewhere
80% out,
75% out in the $5
like
plus range.
I'm just gonna let the rest sit.
I on one of our episodes we were talking about this when it launched, and Steven and I bought more when it went down to the twos. I traded out of those, like the extra purchases, but I'm still staking my airdrop, and I actually think that the long-term potential of this is worthy of just staking and holding, because if we believe that OpenSea is undervalued, then if this continues to capture,
it was free money anyway.
It's free money anyway,
right?
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, for a new person, it might not be. For somebody buying in, it might not be free money. But I think there is upside here. Maybe not from where it is now, which is $5.50, but like in 8 days, the rewards are going to have, and maybe that's your opportunity to get in if you're a believer in NFT marketplaces.
Right. This is
for somebody who wants to buy,
this is probably a good point to I think talk about something that's really critical in DeFi, right? Which is a lot of people, they buy into these protocols, right? And they're really attracted by the yield or the APR, right? And a lot of people don't think like, where does that come from? And I think this project's like especially like tricky and deceptive. And I don't want to say that people are like tricking users, right? But it is deceptive, right? Because you buy this and you're like, oh my God, if I buy this token, I get free ETH, right? But like the fact of the matter is that when you are staked, right, you are being diluted. Like the daily emissions, right, it's like a stock that issues new shares, and the shares that are being issued are more than the ETH you're taking in, right? So it is like a bit of a net negative thing, like all things being equal, and it is like a really complicated equation, like thinking about how to model this stuff. But like that ETH doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from people who wash trade and make more from the token than they spend in the ETH fees. But a lot of these guys just dump the looks on you, and then you end up kind of, if you're a holder, you end up getting diluted. Although I did see somebody write that the best way to actually acquire this token is to wash trade. Like if you have tons of resources and you want to build a big position, the best way to do it is to just flip meebits to yourself back and forth for giant sums of money. But yeah, it's tricky. I just wanted to point that out to people. These APRs can really fuck with people's heads. I mean, mine included.
It's a good point. It's a very good point, and I think we'll probably see that in 8 days.
Steven, do you know, is this on any like centralized exchanges yet, or is it just Uniswap?
It's on FTX, right? I think it's on FTX and it has perps and everything. But FTX is not FTX US. So if you're a US user, you're kind of shit out of luck if you want to buy this, unless you know how to use DeFi.
Right, and to be honest, and maybe I can explain that, because I think it's important. It's a very like simple sort of like path to buying on DeFi, and we might have already mentioned it, but like you just need to go to Uniswap, which is a very straightforward decentralized exchange. Like that's the main place you want to buy this, and the way you buy it is first you need the Ethereum. You would buy that on your favorite centralized exchange, which is typically Coinbase. You connect your MetaMask to Uniswap, and you can buy Lux token. And I think you guys are right. Like I think setting a little calendar invite to yourself on this is very interesting. I think we should revisit this. I think we should like make a mental note of this and revisit this to see how it plays out and talk about it in a future episode, for sure.
Who else has got some alpha?
I'll tell you what I fucked up
let's
on.
hear it.
Yeah, not buying these fucking. I mean, I was so certain, and I'm just so mad at
post
myself.
your conviction in the thread about it, and we're like, meh, whatever.
Everybody ignored me. Everybody ignored me, and then when I came back to say I fucked up and it didn't, and like I can't believe it, everyone ignored me again because they were probably like, yeah, there's really nothing we're gonna say there.
What are we talking about?
So the CryptoPunks, the wrapped V1
the V1s.
CryptoPunks,
Yeah,
we're sitting at like 4, 5, max 6 ETH. Every single day, I was just sitting there trying to like look at that like for a week straight.
So,
and then over the weekend, they went to 25.
so let's give a little
From
context
six.
I have a
on this one.
similar pain point to you, so we can have a little session together. I think.
So, CryptoPunks are kind of like a blue chip NFT project. You may have heard about them. They were one of the first NFT projects. It's 10,000 profile pics essentially, and these things at one point I think in August went up to maybe like 125 ETH floor, higher than where Bored Apes were. They've kind of regressed back down and they're kind of on their way back up, but considered to be for historical culture
They're number
reasons.
one or
Yeah,
number two.
Number two.
At all times.
And so the company that made these, called Larva Labs, they, I guess when they were tinkering around in 2017, created a version, and it had a bug in it. If you were the buyer, it automatically somehow refunded you the amount you purchased, so the seller never got the money. And I think there's like 1,400 of them, not 10,000. And it seemed like a bug, and they kind of dropped it and moved on, and then developed the main project, the 10,000 CryptoPunks that everyone kind of knows and loves as an NFT blue chip. And so this company came around and wrapped it in a kind of new code, if you will, and fixed the bug and said, hey, these things, these initial ones, these version ones that had the bug, they're actually worth quite a bit because technically they were the first CryptoPunks, even though they had a bug and wrap software around it. So anyway, that's the context in the project. A lot of these NFT projects, or some of the older ones, kind of accrue value based upon, were they first? Do they have any kind of historical or cultural value by being first? So anyway, Armand spotted them.
I am mad. I am very mad. Like, very mad. Like, I considered buying 3. Like, not just one, because I was like, this is serious. I was like, this is big. Like, there's no way this
Let's
is
calculate
big. And
Armand's
it doesn't make sense that it's at this price.
This opportunity cost here. So you were going to buy 3.
It's 60. It's 60.
Oh, you already did the pain. Okay, 60 ETH is your max
No,
pain.
I just did it right now. If it was 6 and it's 26 now, what is it? It's 26.
Let's not give
right?
Armand all the pity here. I was going to buy these stupid things too. The problem I ran into.
Why didn't you respond to me? Why didn't you
Steven,
answer me
too
then
many-
when I
we
said,
have too many chats.
do you
I,
guys
like-
want to buy these?
Steven,
It's a crypto
Steven
punk
was
for
going to
6
buy
ETH,
every
and
single
nobody
asset
responded.
that pumped. Steven
Can
was
you
gonna
guys
buy
hear
all
me
of them.
now? Nick is texting. I can't hear you. Volume low. Can you guys hear me now?
The problem I was running into, I was trying to talk to people I know to like talk this through, and I realized when I was talking to them that they all owned CryptoPunks, and they all had like bag bias, right? They were all like, no,
Exactly.
and I kind of knew they were going to pump. I also don't really think that they're going to sustain any value. I think there's a lot of perverse incentives here when people kind of do these archaeological things and kind of dump their bags on it. Like the V1 punks, they don't have legitimacy. right? Like the fact that they're
No, Steven, no, I couldn't disagree more. You're telling me that like a CryptoPunk will be at 100 ETH and this thing won't at least be worth 50%
Armand
of that at all times?
No, I
has
don't
shown
think
his
so.
cards.
I don't think
Armand
so.
is a convergor. That's all. He looks at every single asset. He's like, this has to converge.
Well, I'm looking at like even back to Cool Pets. I'm like, okay, that's worth 50%. It's got a 20,000 supply. This is 10,000 supply. We expanded the pool to 30,000. It's got to be worth at least
they're not really
50%,
punks,
40%.
There's something
Again,
there. There's something
they-
there,
they-
Armand.
there's something.
There's something to converge.
They wouldn't be worth 26, 27 ETH if there
Oh,
wasn't
that's
something.
not a good indicator. We could point to like 1,000 projects that mooned and then just that went to zero, right? Like that happens all the time.
I don't think this will go to zero.
here-
I'd be happy.
If it goes to zero, I can't wait to
I'll
buy.
make a prop bet with you. I'd be happy to. Like, I don't think these things trade for within 10% of the floor of punks within a year.
Let's do it, boys.
Whoa, that's extreme.
That's
easy
no,
percent.
hold on. I never said 10%.
Armand said 50.
Give
Armand
me
said
50%.
That's what he said.
Yeah, and Steven was talking like it's going to zero. So let's at least meet at 50%.
What are you talking about? I'm giving you a good bet. I gave you 10% instead of 50%. I'm giving you free money.
No.
Oh,
Within.
I thought you meant-
No,
I
I
think
said these things are going to
90%.
be below 10% of the floor
Sorry.
of punks in a year.
So
I
right
thought
now
you
we're
meant
talking
90%.
at 8 ETH. They're at 22. So Steven's saying 10% of. Ooh, that might
So
be.
it'll be below 10 ETH probably, is what Steven's saying. Armand's going to take that bet.
Yeah,
You
I'll-
can
all
make
day
back
long.
60 ETH.
You go for it. I think you're gonna.
He's a convergor. Of course he's going with it.
Why are these things gonna have value? Right? There's this idea that like what they have value just because they were like first, right? I think
Have you
it's
ever
a funny
heard of this?
trade
Tightening?
because there's a million people
No,
like
they're
you
part
out
of the
there who are
project.
probably thinking this. So I think it's an amazing trade. I mean, now I've missed the damn trade, but I think it was a good trade. But like, are they gonna
Look.
sustain value? No.
If the CryptoPunk community embraces, fuck, no question.
0% chance
If
they
they
embrace
don't
this.
embrace, okay, I think I agree with you there. I think
I
nothing
don't want
is
to say
zero,
zero.
but it's
I'm
probably
gonna
more
say
like 20.
0.01%. It's like 10,000 to 1 odds.
But even if they don't, when you have 1,000 of something, that's a community in and of itself. Like, come on.
There's
like,
there's a lot.
look
There's
at-
a lot of people bag holding complete trash with communities 1,000 strong. Like that doesn't. It doesn't.
okay, let's zoom back out. Let's like make this actually like valuable in some way here. What we had was, I think, an opportunity to get in on an NFT that was associated to like a Grail blue chip NFT, and it was sitting at 6 ETH, and it came out all of a sudden because they sort of fixed the bug or whatever, right? They wrapped it like it was. Can you explain that, Nick? Like what they did to fix? Do you know exactly?
Yeah, it was an older version of an NFT. I don't know the exact type of token. It wasn't an ERC 721. It was an older type of token.
Right.
So I believe they wrapped it in an ERC 721 token. So, for example, the OG CryptoPunks, the ones that are actually worth money, are
Bag bias.
probably
Bag bias.
can't be traded on OpenSea because they are an older token type. So I think what they did was took the old token type, wrapped it in the newer one, fixed the bug, and that's how they solved the issue. It also might be that there's a smaller portion, 14% of these, also lower supply might make it. And here's another thing. Larva Labs, there's a lot of derivative projects that come up, and Larva Labs, which rarely speaks about the market, ups and downs, kind of like the Fed. They like pretend not to care about what the market says and don't comment on it, but behind the scenes they're probably really watching it pretty closely. They came out and said on January 25th, PSA V1 punks are not official crypto punks. We don't like them, and we've got 1,000 of them. So draw your own conclusions. Any proceeds will be used to purchase real CryptoPunks. So naturally, because they had created these, bugged V1 CryptoPunks, they owned the significant majority of them. So I think what they did was their intent was to kind of dump on the holders by selling a bunch of them, and then they did use some of the proceeds to purchase CryptoPunks. But by acknowledging them, I think they gave them a little bit of validity just by acknowledging them, and they went on a subsequent run. I don't know if that pump is gonna last though. So anyway,
Totally Streisand affected them for sure.
I didn't know any of that, for the record.
Okay.
So
Okay,
You're
that's
just on the
education.
right
I'll still
track.
take the bet.
It is a good, like,
still
kind of
take the
deeper
bet.
meta question, like what makes an NFT valuable. And it's like, to me, what makes something valuable isn't just pure archaeological significance, right? There is this concept of like legitimacy, to borrow from that old Vitalik article, right? Like, some things are legitimate and some things are not, and it's not necessarily a thing that you can just quantify by a timestamp of the blockchain. It's a little more complicated than that, and punks have been around for a long time. That community has grown out of nothing and been through a lot, right? So to think that some new thing is going to just come in and displace all that because it was a bug that kind of predated it, I'm open to the idea that it could happen, but I put that at a very low probability.
So here's what I would need to see to
I
change
don't
my
think-
view, is that CryptoPunk holders would want to buy their matching V1 CryptoPunk to kind of have a hold on that,
Just burn it. You should just buy it and just burn it.
Nick,
But there's only
claimable?
1,400.
Like, are they claimable to, like, what? How did they even get out there? Like, can
What was a
V2
bug? So
holders claim their one, or
imagine, I don't know how the other 400 like got out, but imagine if you're a software developer. I mean, they should have released this on a test net, not on the main net. But in any case, they had a bugged project. I think they held them. I don't know how 400 of them also got, put out there. Maybe they traded hand. I think maybe they were available to mint at some point, and then they realized there was a bug. So maybe that was a scenario that came about. So anyway, I think that's something to keep an eye on. I mean, I think the trade's over at this point. I don't know if you want to buy now. I think the risk is just way too old. But
Who else?
I feel your pain, though.
maybe you should have bought one and not just bought.
Terrible.
That
was the problem. It was like kind of getting a little like over zealous, if you will, in a way. Well, did anyone else have any winners or losers? Because even losers are important, right? And I think that what we actually are still trying to figure out is, to Steven's point, is there really a formula here for NFT success? Because I don't know anyone who has created a formula for that or a framework for that. We all talk about like variables, but the same variables never exist in all the winners. And it's just this, I don't know how to like really capture that, because I think that's something people constantly wonder. How do I know if this is a winner or I'm just going to get rugged? It's very hard to tell.
I've been waiting to go, but like I don't think I don't have really anything to say about this NFT. Like, we're so NFT focused.
Yeah.
I have like macro.
Nah, go where you want to. Take me with you.
Where are we going?
Well, I have a wider purview because I'm looking at markets in general. Not just crypto, not just NFTs. I'm looking across the entire investable universe, and I think it's important to just talk through the process, whether or not we're talking about individual investments. But I think you guys are actually going to like this. When I'm looking at risk assets as a whole, which like Bitcoin and ETH have now become part of that landscape, and I'm looking at growth equities, they seem to trade sort of in line right now. I took some notes from this week. This is important. Like, we're in a pretty clear downward trend, and that's pretty obvious. But like, has the pendulum swung too far? Bearish. That's like a question we're all asking. And when I'm looking at options markets, that's you can like bifurcate options from less than 10 contracts and more than 10 contracts. Meaning, are these retail buyers or are they big players? And the retail buyers have historically been really bullish. Like, they're always just buying the lottery tickets, meaning they're buying call options, like out of the money calls. And that's still the case. But over the last week, they flipped to the put side 40% higher than we were in March of 2020. And this, like, their level of buying, retail buying, has only been this high 3 other times in history. And those times were like associated with the internet bubble of like early 2000s. So this is this is a moment for me where I'm thinking like, okay, what is going on here? I think.
And just to interject real quick, Eric, just very simply, put buying is meaning you think things are going to go down, right? That's what you're betting.
Right. So people buying
okay.
puts are buying protection to the downside, and people buying calls are buying speculation to the upside. So put buying is bearish actors, and retail buyers have been more bearish this week than in the last 20 years. That moment to me signifies something.
That's
like,
insane,
like
man.
Maybe we're getting a little too bearish. However, in the previous 3 times that this happened, it also signified a very long bottoming process. So we might be like, maybe the pendulum did swing too far, and I think like, I guess at the start of this week, we're seeing like more money come into growth equities. We're seeing a kind of a bounce, like earnings are propping up things like Google earnings, Facebook, Microsoft. They're all kind of like propping up growth equity markets, which like I think Bitcoin and ETH are kind of trading in line with that. But as I'm looking at this ecosystem, this universe, I'm seeing just a lot of bearishness, like way more than we've ever seen in a long, long time. So when I'm looking at macro, I think like maybe it's still too soon to, like I think Steven said this 2 episodes ago, but he was like, it's probably still too soon to be buying heavy. It probably is still too soon. We're going to probably mimic that long bottoming process that we had from like the .com bubble era. But the pendulum probably has swung too far. It's gotten a little too scared. And, I think this could be a good time to accumulate. But, I'm with Nick. I was looking at looks token. I'm looking at things that are sort of non-correlated to broad risk assets. And like, so I think wool also qualifies, but
are
et cetera, et cetera.
Are you starting to DCA into the market or because like if you're identifying that we're potentially oversold, are you starting? Or are you just saying I'm acknowledging that we're potentially oversold and that in the next coming month to 2 months might be a good time to enter?
Yeah, I think that's the second thing is probably more right. It's like it's probably a little too early to be buying, but like maybe if you use like a 12-month DCA or something. Like, actually, my base case thesis is that we're going to have 9 months of down, and this is all tethered to the macro data points that we've been talking about before, which is like inflation. If inflation starts to normalize, which there is some data to suggest that like inflation won't be as bad going forward as it was before. If inflation's not so bad, then the Fed doesn't have to tighten as much as they said they were going to. And if the Fed doesn't have to tighten as much, then maybe this party keeps going. So that's where my mind is at. But there's a lot of complexity because when the Fed when inflation's not going and we're gonna flattening yield curve, it also suggests that growth is not there anymore. So you have to take that into consideration. But at the end of the day, buying these things cheap is better than buying them expensive. So you could easily argue now is the time to DCA, but I think there's probably still some more room down.
It's interesting that the market is pricing in 5 rate hikes for the year. So that means at minimum, let's call it 1.25% increase in the Fed funds rate, which is essentially going to be a 1.25% interest rate. That seems aggressive, and maybe we're kind of overshooting that, a little bit. So, to that end, maybe that lines up with what you're seeing on these like put buying.
I personally think you're right, Nick. I think that's right. And I on the one hand, the Fed, like Powell has actually said like we don't think there's any risk to raising interest rates up to 1.25 or beyond, because employment numbers are so strong, and like as a part of their dual mandate, they think that that side is not threatened by increasing the rates that high.
Have you noticed they kind of do these things where the different Fed presidents, the different regional areas will kind of do these one-off interviews? I think one did one interview with the Financial Times where they said, a 50 basis point increase, a 0.5% increase in the interest rate is not off in one meeting, which would be a more aggressive. Usually it's in 0.25% increases or decreases. And so I feel like that's them like throwing out a flyer just to see what the market says, so they can kind of feel out if they did do one, would the market react, in a massive sell-off, or would they take it in stride and maybe take that as, okay, Now we're ahead. We're catching up to inflation, and so we're kind of at equilibrium again. So I feel like they kind of do these things where they send out one guy on one media news outlet and see how the market reacts. So yeah, I mean, maybe that is that they're thinking about coming out aggressive, but I think in the end, 5 rate hikes over the next 9 months seems kind of tough for the market to take, and tough for the federal government.
Particularly, yeah, you're right. Particularly if inflation begins to normalize on its own, and they don't have to fight against that, then why would they? Why would they tighten so hard?
Mm-hmm.
So you think we're going to see just to get down to like what the possible trade is, we could see a longer bottoming out, a longer like sideways action almost, where you will have time to kind of DCA into the things that you like, the cherry pick, and then when you're looking at non-correlated assets like even some of the crypto things that are moving up and down regardless of the macro, what interest rates are doing, what risk on, risk off capital is doing. You like to play those because those are going to have maybe more volatility than some of these more like generic things like tech growth equities or something.
Right, and just to put just to put a tighter time frame around it, I think this like growth equity sideways with a downward tilt is probably 6 months, not 2 years. I think 6 months from now it could be lower, but then 12 months from now we're probably back into a bullish sort of return, so long as inflation normalizes. That's my base case.
So I have another.
So Eric, are you making?
I said one more follow-up question on that. So Eric has done a trade before where he sells call options to people. So the people buying call options are the people who are saying, "Hey, I'll pay a premium, a fee, in order to buy this stock potentially at a higher price in the hopes that it goes up and crosses that price." And Eric has played a trade where he's happily selling that to them and kind of collecting that fee. For providing them that option to buy the stock and in hopes it goes up. So my question is, when you kind of feel going forward there's going to be this maybe flat to slight downward tilt in the market, are you happy to collect those fees? The market isn't super bullish, so those fees are probably not as high as they were, say, in 2020, but still, are you happy to collect those premiums selling the call options?
It's a tough question because like I sell these like short dated ones that are a week long, and what I'm seeing now is like this sort of reverse trade, like it's a bounce in growth equity and crypto and stuff like Bitcoin and ETH kind of bounce. So I'm less likely to sell calls against those right now, but what I am probably more over the next 6 months is going to be looking to sell puts, meaning I'll collect the fees. But on the way down, even if I lose the trade, then I'll own the underlying, meaning like I'll buy ETH for cheaper, I'll buy Bitcoin for cheaper, I'll buy growth equities that I like for cheaper.
Got it. I like it.
Yeah.
So Eric, go ahead, Steven. If you have, because I'm actually curious your take on this, and especially the kind of what would Ray Dalio do sort of perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about volatility a little bit. Obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but when you're selling options, right, you're typically people like to sell them when volatility spikes, right, because your premium is going to be very high and you're sort of betting on volatility decaying. A lot of people think options are just about predicting price movements, but actually it's like very frequently just like a volatility play directionally. I think the VIX lately has been really interesting, or the VIX being the volatility index of the S&P 500. And I think people who are like a little more sophisticated about the market kind of pay more attention to volatility than your average retail person who might just kind of look at price. And, I've seen, technical people who kind of talk about macro, talking about the VIX lately and how it's sort of like entering almost, you could look at it in a way if you squint, where we're sort of like entering like a sort of macro uptrend on volatility, which could be a pretty nasty harbinger of things to come, like if that trend continues. And this is sort of like the great question of our time, right? We've had for a long time now these people who are basically saying the whole system is a giant Ponzi. It's going to collapse in a fiery ball of, chaos, right? And then the people being like, okay, you could be if you've been a perma bear since 2009, you've basically just lost like incredible amounts of money because that hasn't come to play. So then we're all faced with this larger question of like, do we ever have that moment where we lose 50% on the stock index and everything really goes to hell, at which point you get all these generational buy prices on crypto? Or are we right now just in like yet another one of these long lines of like, oh my God, it's going to blow up, but it doesn't. And it's just another buy the dip opportunity. I do think the dip we just had was like, objectively speaking, if you look at the S&P, right, which I do. And I think if you trade crypto at all seriously, right, you don't just look at crypto because it is sort of correlated with the same trade. And when you look at like the SPX, right, the S&P lately, like that was a pretty nasty fall we took. And Eric, you were saying earlier how like retail got like super bearish, and I this is something I've struggled with, right? Because I definitely think we got to a point like a week ago or so where it was obviously too much, right? Everybody was buying puts, everybody was doomsday, right? And that was probably a good trade for the bounce. And we did bounce. We bounced like really hard in everything, right? Like S&P's way up. ETH is probably up like 25% off of its lows, right? But now I think we're in like a dangerous area again, right? If you look at a chart of the S&P, like you don't have to be like a technician to look at the chart and be like, okay, we like broke a structure. There's a very obvious upline. We had a bad down candle, and now we're sort of coming up to test like the bottom of that again, right? So if you're a bull, you want to see price in this area like very powerfully go back into that channel and kind of continue on, right? And like ETH today especially worried me because I was looking at ETH and we're kind of rallying into that kind of critical area again where you think that price may run into some resistance and going up, and you want to see like a strong move there. And to me it looked like very it didn't inspire confidence. We kind of came up, like volume was kind of declining and we didn't see like a big move. So I'm a little concerned about that. It definitely feels to me like the worst isn't over yet, and we may have like another really bad leg down. I mean, that being said, like if you're a long-term investor, these are still probably buy levels, right? But if you're trading for the next quarter and you buy here, you're like, yeah, you might get wrecked, but most people probably shouldn't be doing that,
I think
right?
This is a good segue because you just kind of like talked about the long-term holder. So what I'm interested in also is like the fundamentals of these investments, and like Ethereum in particular has some very interesting catalysts to the upside on the near-term horizon. Like the merge, what is it? The merge to ETH 2.0, this like triple halvening idea. How do you fold that into your investment thesis?
So my generalized investment thesis is that right now, no matter what you think is going to happen in crypto, if macro doesn't want to come along for the ride, it doesn't matter. I think everything is still just too much of like a really big risk on trade where everything is just correlated with what's the Fed doing, where's liquidity, right? And that can make it like really hard to buy anything because you want to be buying things on the basis of fundamentals, but in reality, it's just a big like risk on, risk off trade, right? So I to your point, like what I think at some point this year, it may have already happened, but like I think at some point this year, we're going to get like probably the greatest generational opportunity to buy Ethereum that we may ever have again, right? Like if you look at, for people who aren't aware of this, right? Like last summer, Ethereum rolled out a change to how the network functions, where gas fees are burned instead of just distributed to miners. And it's resulted in this like crazy dynamic where normally we issue ETH every year to secure the network and it's inflationary, but lately we've been burning so much Ethereum from the usage of the network that it's at times gone negative. And I have watchtheburn.com pulled up right now, taking a look at this. For the last 30 days, there's been a 97.24% reduction in issuance, meaning like over the last month, we've burned $1.1 billion worth of ETH in just the last month. And we've had effectively like no net issuance, right? So what we have going on right now is we have this weird dynamic where on the supply side, right, if you look at some of these metrics, if you look at Ethereum held on exchanges, right, it's just a line down since like early 2020, basically, just straight down, right? And you see ETH being burned. Like the actual supply itself is going down, right, relative to what it normally would have been. So when I say supply side, I mean like, you know, where ETH might normally be sold, people who might be selling or the supply of ETH to sell, it's going down like crazy. And the problem is like on the buy side, right, there just hasn't been this like institutional demand to come in and like bid this up for a while. So you have this weird dynamic where if you look at things from one side of the equation, it seems like, holy God, this is like a powder keg ready to explode, because supply basically just keeps going down, 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 whether it's being burned, it's being taken off exchanges, it's being locked in like contracts throughout DeFi, right? But because we haven't had buyers come in to buy yet, we just haven't seen like a huge move, right? And it's weird. These conditions can persist for a while where you have just like everything looks like, oh my God, the price is going to move. But if nobody comes to buy, nothing happens. But that can turn around so quickly. Like if the bid does return to the market at some point and the bid returns and then we get ETH2 rolling out this year, which is going to basically burn even more ETH, right? If those two things kind of come to the market at the same time, like I do see the possibility for just like an absolute explosion in the price at some point, right? Because when the bid returns, there's not going to be any ETH for them to buy anymore. And that could be like nuts. But it's such a hard thing to try to plan for, because like macro does look like complete shit. And ETH, if you look at any sort of like longer term metrics, can for sure go down to like $500-$800. That's like completely within the normal volatility of ETH, which is hard to wrap your head around as an investor. So, you know, I don't know what else to tell people other than to say that, you know, the next year is unpredictable, but like 5 years out, 10 years out, if you have that mindset, like there's so many good things immediately on the horizon, and that there's so much less ETH to buy, relatively speaking, than there was like a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
I mean, the most important thing I heard is that at some point this year, if not this year, right now, in and of itself, depending on your time horizon, this is the greatest opportunity ever to take part in probably the best price you'll ever see for crypto. Steven specifically said Ethereum, but let's just call it crypto as a whole, this whole industry as a whole. Nick, like we just unpacked like a ton of shit. What does that all mean to you?
So I think the reason this is important is because I think cumulatively between this group, we see the next leg of ETH price being somewhere between, at least me personally, somewhere between like 10 and 18K, depending on how much of a blow off top we have, like we've seen in past years. So, you know, you are looking at, you know, a 3 to 4x, I think, in our base case. And like Steven said, this thing could go, this kind of consolidation at this price with some potential local bear markets could persist for another year or two. But if you have the patience, over a 1 to 3 year period, you could see a 4x plus price movement. So I think, you know, maybe the risk to downside is maybe 50%, but your upside is 3 to 4x over the next 2 to 3 years, I think, conservatively. So that's why this is important. And yeah, I'd agree. Like we are in kind of this Goldilocks feeling. That's what it feels like to me. of whether, we could go down more or we're going to kind of continue to consolidate more and move up. But I just think it's important to acknowledge the potential impact and the potential return that could come from slowly making purchases over the next, few months to 6 months to the whole year.
Right.
Even.
Let me try and put a bow on that, and then if someone can think of a really good, juicy alfalfa drop to take us home with. So, look, I think ultimately what we're hearing is, over the next 6 months, year, up to even 2 years, we could be entering a period where there's going to be massive opportunities to buy this asset that is going to pay wonderful dividends and ultimately serve as your new form of wealth. It's going to be, if you participate, a massive majority of your wealth portfolio. And what most people do when they're on the outside looking in and they can't wrap their minds around the things that a professional like Steven is looking at, is they tend to copy and emulate what other people are doing. And what other people are doing is almost always wrong. So please, let's just note that. And after everything you've heard, understand that when Bitcoin or Ethereum or crypto or NFTs is in the news and your neighbor who has no money is telling you that they think they want to buy a cartoon JPEG, that's generally a signal that you're getting in a little too late. And what you want to do is you want to wait for the bloodbath. You want to wait for CNN and Fox News and CNBC to talk shit about everything we're doing here. And that is your opportunity. And when I say talk shit, I mean they're there saying ha, 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 this all is a scam. The cartoon JPEGs fell apart. Bitcoin is down to all-time lows for the last 2 years, or 200-week lows have been hit. Whatever it is, it's something like that. That is when you want to have your cash reserves ready to go, and that's when you want to strike. And you could do it that way, or you could do it in a dollar cost average way where you literally just set an amount of money. When you go, this is the amount of money I'm going to put in once a month, or once, one thing I've also dealt with is I also don't like the once a month cadence, because I'm oh my God, there's so much volatility within 1 month. So I actually up that at times to once a week. And I'm just here's the money, let's call it $100. And I'm going to divide that up between 6 months. And I'm going to say, what is that divided by the number of weeks in 6 months? And that's how much I'm going to buy on Coinbase every single week. So just determine that for yourself, and just know that over this next year, there's a tremendous opportunity. I think that's the most important part about all of this. Anything to add to that, anybody?
Good job, man. That was it. Good job. You said it right.
Because I think most people tend to get a little bit lost in some of those concepts because it creates fear for them. They're well, the fundamentals of how this all works, I can't understand it, and I feel like a fucking pawn. I feel like a little chess piece in the game, and it's actually a little overwhelming. I'll be honest. I think especially as someone that had to learn these things along the way and didn't really participate in this stuff in high school and middle school. I was I had to learn them, and I was man, that's really intimidating to most people, because it's just if you don't take the time to learn this stuff, it's just whoa, this game is much bigger than me. It's scary. I don't even want to play. But you should play. And what you should play is the classic Warren Buffett quote, honestly, I think is the best way to play it. If people are being greedy, what's the quote, Eric, exactly? Do you know?
Be fearful when people are greedy, and be greedy when people are fearful.
And I'd add on to that is not just when they're fearful, but when they're not talking about it. When it kind of just evaporates from the conversation, that's when it seems, really ripe. And ideally, we'd all like to sell into these pumps. And when things are agnostic to fearful, that's when we want to be finding things to buy. It's hard in reality, but I think that's what we'd like to do. Especially for
I think the most important thing here is it's really sexy to talk about. Is the price going to go up? Is the price going to go down? Is this the bottom? Like, obviously, everybody likes to speculate on that. But like the vast majority of people, they put too much effort into, should I buy here? Is this the bottom? Like they spend like 98% of their mental energy like thinking like, is this the bottom? The reality of the situation is that people need to spend less time about worrying about the bottom and just more time worrying about like, are they buying good assets, right? Because most people's problem isn't the timing, right? It's that they buy stuff that's trash, that's like kind of destined to go to zero, right? So as long as you're buying good stuff, right? Like you're not going to go broke buying Bitcoin. You might not have a sexy 1000x, but you're going to be fine in 20 years if you buy at these prices, right? So it's less timing. It's more. It's not even like, it's just like a discipline thing, right? It's not like people don't know that they should only really like buy Bitcoin and ETH. Like the vast majority of people like need to stay in their lane and just be kind of aware of what they do and don't know. If you're not going to put in like all of the grind work that's required to actually like learn about this like longer tail stuff, then you probably shouldn't be buying it with any like real amount of money, right? And that's sort of the end of
just as a reminder, Steven said on one of our previous episodes that the holy portfolio was like Bitcoin, ETH, stable coins, real estate. Just to remind everybody.
And if you have big old balls of conviction like Michael Saylor, you don't care what the price is. You buy the tops anyway, which is what he just recently said. He's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'll buy it at any time. We have the cash, we're buying. Like, that's
good
it.
Mentality.
So it is. Because when I look back, even on like some of the best stock trades I've made, like before I ever was involved in crypto, it's exactly what Steven said. I would sit there and I would overanalyze price. And one of my best trades has been, one of my best buys, not even trades, has been Nvidia. And I would sit there and I'd be like, okay, maybe today was not the right day. Maybe I'll buy it tomorrow. Let me try to get like an extra 5% edge. 5%. What is 5% when you're making 1,000%? So it's meaningless. Buy things you believe in. That's all that matters.
And if I could,
do we have?
I'll take it home, I guess, with a little bit of specific stuff, just so that we're not like too high level engineers. If anybody out there is like a little bit of a degen and you don't want to just buy Bitcoin, and we tell you that like all the time. Sure, you're like, sure.
Most people are these days.
There is some interesting stuff happening in DeFi right now. If you know how to yield farm, if you know how to kind of take stable coins and get like a pretty good interest rate on them, or you want to learn how to do that, right? One of the reasons I'm not jumping into the market right now is because like the risk reward on like ETH looks like, a little iffy to me, when compared to the fact that you can make like 20-25% on crypto cash right now still, if you know what you're doing. And that's also another indicator I look at in the market, right? When stablecoin yields are still really, really high, to me it's like a sign that the market is still kind of risk on and might have like a little more downside in it. Like I generally feel a little more comfortable buying when all these yields are sort of collapsed, because it's like kind of like a sign of capitulation.
Right.
But a couple of things I'm looking at, like the Phantom ecosystem has been like really, 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 really good for yields for a long time, for a lot of stuff. If you want to mess around with some stable coins on there, Yearn Finance, right, makes it like really, really easy. I mean, last I checked, you could get 16-17% on DAI with like a single deposit there. And if you want to be a little more adventurous, there's definitely stuff you can find. Liquid Driver is a really interesting protocol if you want to take on a little more risk and farm stuff. I've been doing a strategy where I take stable coins and I put them in like a Scream or like a lending platform, and you get the deposit interest on the stables, and then I'll borrow like the native token like Phantom, and then use that to pool, and then I'll be kind of taking on obviously the risk of those prices moving a lot and losing money if that happens. But over the long run, right, if you're collecting 60-70% interest, right, that should sort of balance it out. So that's something I like. And another thing to look out for, the Metis system has been pretty good. Metis is a L2 built on top of ETH. Vitalik's mom is involved with it. But there's you can get 18% on stables and Agora, which is kind of like the Aave of Metis. And if you want to be a little more adventurous and pool like your stables with the Metis native token, I saw 250% APYs today when I was hopping around in there. So there's a lot of really juicy yields still in DeFi. Kind of bite off however much you want.
So Steven, I love that, but I have a problem, and I think I have the problem that most people have, which is like, how do I do that? Like some of these I know how to do, and others I've never even been on those like sites before. I've never even played with those protocols. Like, would you be willing to show us? Perhaps maybe we can upload little clips to YouTube of you walking us through some of these things. Or, I mean, how do we actually help people? How do we actually show people how to get these yields? Because like, I don't have the time to go and learn, and I don't really trust other people on YouTube. I want the DeFi Lord tutorial. I don't want the I don't want the
Steps
other
1 through
con
12,
artists because I
please.
don't trust
Just
them.
Let me follow along.
Please,
Just hire him. Hire
Please.
Steven.
I mean,
expensive.
I do think there
DeFiLord.com.
are a lot of good tutorials on YouTube, though. I think it can be, I guess it can be overwhelming as a newbie because you don't know who to trust, right? But if I was to like kind of really consolidate this advice and make it, pretty dense, step one is to get your coins off of an exchange and to go on to Ethereum, right? And just figure out that process, right? How do I use MetaMask, right? How do I even do that? That's step one. I think step two, if you're not a power user, is to get your money onto a layer 2 or a sidechain as quickly as possible. Figure out how to bridge your money from Ethereum to Polygon or Avalanche or Phantom. Those are probably really great, like user-friendly things. And they also have really good yield opportunities. Like Arbitrum is a true layer 2, but I don't know if I'd recommend people going there because the fees are actually still kind of high right now and the yield isn't really great. But Matic is like kind of like a good happy medium to me. It's like a little closer to the Ethereum ecosystem, but still has some interesting stuff to do. So if you can figure out how to get funds onto Polygon, right? Then to me, like the first step of the equation is like learn how to use Aave. Aave is like one of the
Why Aave specifically over every other DEX? And
Well,
DEX
Aave is not a
meaning
DEX.
decentralized.
Aave is a lending
exchange.
platform, right? But that's like kind of the basis.
Oh, if there's
of,
no exchange.
That's
Oh,
like the
okay.
basis
Yeah.
of DeFi, right? Like at its very base layer, I want to take my capital and I want to put it somewhere and I want to make it productive. I want to earn interest on it, right? So the very most basic thing you can do is to get your hands on some stable coins, right? Move those stable coins over to Matic, via the Matic bridge, probably, unless you can find an exchange with direct withdrawals, which is the best. But I don't think we have a lot of those yet. But then once you have, stable coins on Matic and you have a little bit of Matic token to pay for the gas, don't need a lot, but you need a little bit. Once you do that, like the most basic thing you can do is to take your stable coins and deposit them in Aave, right? Aave, very, very blue chip protocol. Nothing's going to happen to your funds there. It's
$20 billion
about as safe
locked
as it
there.
gets as far as like the risk goes. And if you put stable coins in Aave, you're going to earn,
Didn't
anywhere
we
from
recommend
2
Curve
to
before?
15% on them, probably, depending on what the demand is that day. And that's the basic thing. And that you can learn a lot by doing that. You can learn how to interact with the protocol and sign things in your wallet and start
Yeah.
making a little bit of money.
I still need
right?
the tutorial.
And then I think step 2 from there for people is probably to learn how to use Curve. Curve is like one step up in the difficulty from Aave. A little more complexity. You have to learn what is a liquidity pool, how do I get in a liquidity pool, and then, there's this other step once I'm in the pool where I have to stake my pool tokens into a gauge and earn farm tokens. So that already is going to be like really overwhelming for a lot of people who have never done this before because you've just layered on all these steps. But I would say for that, like there are a lot of tutorials on how to do that, how to interact with Curve with stablecoins. It's a safe protocol, like relatively speaking in the realm of DeFi. That's where I would focus my energy first for people, and then I think once you get that down, if you're still feeling spicy, you can kind of start going a few more layers down the rabbit hole. But That would be my broad recommendation to people.
Cool.
I like it. Still want the tutorial. That doesn't.
Well,
that
people
doesn't,
want it.
That
We'll see
doesn't
if we
cut
can
it
get
for me.
some up.
Speaking of tutorials and just general things, by the way, I'm going to say something, but who has an alfalfa drop for today? Who's got the big one?
Let us have it. Let us have it.
Is it going to be you?
I like.
Who?
I
Hit
mean,
me.
No.
I like Steven's mention from last week, which was still the Phantom token, ticker symbol FTM. One of the things I look at with all these, so Phantom is kind of a Ethereum competitor. It's a quote unquote Ethereum killer maybe, and the fact that someone like Steven is operating on this platform means it has utility. There are applications that are doing well. Money is migrating over, and the metric we use to value how much money is moving over onto a layer one like Ethereum or Phantom is total value locked. And total value locked, I mean, just at the beginning of the year was 4.6 billion, and we're sitting at 9.3 billion. So we're looking at the amount of money that's been locked in Phantom has doubled since the beginning of the year, but the price hasn't necessarily moved. So, when we look at the market cap or the price relative to how much total value locked money is on the platform, it still seems significantly undervalued compared to the other options, which are things like Ethereum, AVAX, Terra, Binance Smart Chain. It seems like by that metric, by the price of the token and how much money is actually on the platform locked being used, seems undervalued. So I don't know.
What does that mean? It's like just good token?
Yeah,
good
I mean,
token
I'm
to own?
DCAing into it. If when I'm selling some things,
Yeah.
I'm kind of selling some NFTs that kind of went up in value and using that money to kind of decrease the amount of NFT exposure I have and back into some of these alternate layer ones for 2022, and that's
Got
the
it.
one that I think seems. The price doesn't seem to be obvious, but it just seems, I don't know. The fact that like power users like Steven are on there, the money is kind of being attracted to there. The price, while it has gone up, over the last 6 months, I don't think it's taken into account the recent spike in total value lock. So kind of borrowing from what Steven said,
think,
but I've been eyes on it hardcore.
I like what Nick said there. I think an important point to make is that Phantom is still part of that risk asset trade, and it will probably trade down with the beta of like all risk assets, growth equity, Bitcoin, ETH, etc. And as those things sort of show weakness, Phantom will continue to show weakness. But to Nick's point, when things turn around, Phantom will turn around harder. It'll bounce higher than Bitcoin, Ethereum. So
yeah, so that
it's
I'm
just
not
an interesting way to play.
I'm not bullish enough to just dump it all in there, but I'm trying to put chunks in every week, to kind of dollar cost average in. But it just seems kind of one of those trades that not a lot of people talking about. Steven's actively using it, and it seems like the downside risk is relatively low for what could potentially happen.
I like it.
On the upside.
I like it. That's Phantom with an
FTM.
F. Degents and Degenettes. FTM. Ticker symbol FTM. I think it's on most exchanges, if I'm not mistaken.
Uniswap is where your best bet is. I think Binance also has it.
Okay. Sweet. Well, actually, one thing I just thought of mentioning, you guys don't even know I'm going to mention this. So, shout out to, honestly, the Alfalfa support squad WhatsApp thread for a lot of the alpha that we ourselves are getting. There's a lot of Alfalfa in there. And, I just had this thought. I was like, we need to expand that because there's about 30 friends in there. And 30 friends, I should say. And I think that there's so many of you listening that would probably really enjoy being in that group, because just imagine like a week-long 24/7 version of everything that we're doing here on the show, on the Alfalfa podcast. And I think if enough people show interest over time, I mean, obviously we're going to do this is just to have our own Discord and just really start to build this thing out. We want to start to get really serious about this. It really matters to us. We're having a fuck ton of fun with it. And there's no point if we're not sharing more and more alfalfa with you guys, like day in and day out outside of the show. And we're even thinking about doing the show live as well. So like, if you're still listening right now, like, first of all, thank you. We love you. I hope you got something out of it. And we're only going to get better. And we're thinking of doing it live and like just having more of a dynamic back and forth where we take questions and just have more of an engagement, a two-way conversation. So if you want that, if you want us to set up Discord, if you want us to start to really build this community out, just hit us up on Twitter or Instagram.
Or
send a DM.
make fun of
let
us
us know.
in
We'll be
Apple
attention.
Podcast reviews, and then mention you one in the
Yes,
thread,
please.
and we'll add you. Yeah, make
Yes,
fun of us
please.
on there with 5 stars, please.
All right, boys. Good stuff. That was a great sesh. See you guys next time.
All right, amigos.
Peace. Later.